My mother spent 15 years faking suicide attempts every time I tried to leave the house. The day I finally walked out during one of her latest staged drownings, the police called to say she'd been caught filing false emergency reports. Then she was diagnosed with real diabetes and used her actual illness as the ultimate weapon. My mother is a professional victim. Ever since my dad left when I was 8, she's had a warped way of controlling me and my sister Claire. The first time I tried to go to a friend's birthday party, she locked herself in the bathroom with a bottle of pills. "Go ahead, have fun while your mother dies alone," she screamed through the door. I spent the entire night begging her to come out instead of going to the party. That was only the beginning. By the time I hit middle school, she had a full routine. If I brought home anything less than an A, she'd climb onto the balcony and threaten to jump. If Claire wanted to try out for soccer, Mom would grab a knife and press it to her wrist. "You want to abandon me for some stupid game? Fine. You won't have a mother to abandon anymore." She knew exactly when to escalate. Parent-teacher conferences were her favorite. She'd time her meltdowns to the exact minute I was supposed to leave. Once I told her I'd only be gone an hour and tried to go anyway. When I came home, she was in the bathtub, fully clothed, with a plugged-in hairdryer lying on the edge. She wasn't hurt, just sitting there, waiting for me to find her. I never made it to another school function again. Claire figured it out early. She was only 10 when she started secretly recording Mom's threats on her phone. "She's not going to do it," Claire would whisper to me at night. "She just wants us to stay." But I couldn't take that risk. What if the one time I called her bluff was the time she meant it? So I stayed. I turned down sleepovers, quit the school play, stopped talking to friends who asked too many questions. My life became about managing her moods. I learned to read her face like a bomb tech reads wires. A twitch in her left eye? I had to cancel plans. Pursed lips? A full-blown episode was coming. Claire went the opposite way. By 14, she was sneaking out of windows and lying about where she was. When Mom found out Claire had a boyfriend, she downed a handful of Tylenol in front of us. We spent 6 hours in the ER while they pumped her stomach. The nurses knew her by name. "You're calling me," she'd say every morning. "Both of you are literally calling your mother." She'd clutch her chest and stagger around the kitchen. My heart can't take this betrayal. I started doing everything for her, cooking, cleaning, paying bills with her credit cards. I scheduled her doctor appointments, drove her everywhere, even though I only had a learner's permit. My grades plummeted from missing so much school. Meanwhile, Claire was basically living at her boyfriend Marcus's house. She'd show up maybe once a week, usually after Mom threatened to drink bleach or drive into a wall. "She's manipulating you," Claire would say. "This isn't love, it's abuse." But I couldn't see it. I didn't want to believe it. When I got accepted to college 2 hours away, Mom emptied the entire medicine cabinet. I found her collapsed on the kitchen floor, foam around her mouth. The paramedics saved her. I deferred enrollment. "How could you even think about leaving me?" she sobbed in the hospital bed. "I gave you life." That's when she started making me sign actual contracts she typed up saying I promised never to leave her. She threatened to show them to people to say I was legally obligated to take care of her. I signed them all. What choice did I have? She'd already proven she'd go that far. Claire left for good when she turned 18. She packed a bag and walked out while Mom screamed about being found dead in the morning. She didn't die. She just shifted everything onto me. Now, if I was 5 minutes late getting home from work, I'd find her in the garage with the car running. If I so much as mentioned the idea of getting my own place, she'd fill the bathtub and hold her head underwater until I begged her to stop. I was 23 and hadn't gone on a single date. My boss would ask why I couldn't stay late, and I'd make up lies. Friends stopped inviting me places because I always canceled. Mom had made herself my entire world by threatening to leave it. The breaking point almost came when my company offered me a promotion regional manager. I'd have to travel 1 week a month. The salary could have changed my life. When I brought up the promotion over dinner, Mom stopped eating. She calmly walked over to the window and started opening it. "I'll jump right now," she said. "Before you even leave for your first trip, I'll be splattered on the sidewalk." The next morning, I called my boss and turned it down, told him I had family obligations. He never brought up another promotion again. Then last week, Claire called. She was getting married. She wanted me to be her maid of honor. When I told Mom, she went straight to the kitchen and pulled out the knives. 23 years I've sacrificed for you ungrateful brats," she wailed. "Go to your sister's wedding, dance on my grave." I snapped. Something inside me finally cracked. I grabbed my keys and walked to the door. Mom ran to the bathroom and locked herself in. I heard water running, heard her shouting that she was going to drown herself. But I kept walking. I got in my car and drove straight to Claire's apartment. Her fiancé, Marcus, opened the door. Mom called 17 times. I didn't answer. Claire held me as I sobbed and shook, terrified that I had just killed my mother. Then came the 18th call, but it wasn't her. It was the police. The officer's voice was calm but serious. "Are you the daughter of Lorraine Bennett? We need you to come down to the station. Your mother is here and there's been an incident." My legs gave out. Marcus caught me before I hit the ground. Claire took the phone from my hands, asking questions with a firm but even tone. I watched her face as she nodded, lips pressed tightly together. The room spun. This was it. I'd finally done it. I had finally called her bluff. Claire hung up and knelt beside me. "She's alive. She's fine. But we need to go to the station." The drive was a blur. Marcus was at the wheel while Claire held my hand in the back seat. I couldn't stop shaking. Every red light dragged on forever. My mind was reeling through every missed party, every declined opportunity, every time I'd run home, and for what? I'd left anyway. And now, she might be gone. The police station smelled like scorched coffee and disinfectant. An officer led us into a small interview room. There was my mother, wrapped in a blanket, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She looked up as we entered, and in a flash, her expression flipped from wounded to livid. "There she is," she spat. "My murderer of a daughter." The officer cleared his throat. "Ma'am, as I explained, filing a false emergency report is a serious offense." "False report?" I blinked, confused. "She called 911 claiming she was dying," the officer said. "Said you abandoned her and that she'd overdosed on pills. Paramedics found her completely unharmed, no medication in her system. She admitted she made the whole thing up to get you home." My mother's face twisted. "She left me. My own daughter left me to die alone." "Ma'am, you weren't dying," the officer said, gently but firmly. "You misused emergency services. We could press charges." Claire stepped forward. "We're not pressing charges. We just want to take her home." But I didn't move. Something had shifted. Years of panic, of rushing back, of giving up pieces of my life every moment, every sacrifice, every threat, all for nothing, all for lies. "No," I said softly. Everyone turned toward me. "I'm not taking her home. I'm done." My mother leapt to her feet, but the officer stepped in front of her. "You ungrateful brat, I gave you everything." "You sacrificed my life," I said. My voice didn't shake this time. "Not yours, mine." We left her there. The officer said they'd release her once she calmed down. Claire drove while I collapsed in the back seat, numb. I slept for 14 hours straight on her couch. When I finally woke, the smell of coffee filled the apartment, and my phone was buzzing. 43 missed calls, all from her. I deleted them without listening. Claire sat beside me with 2 mugs. "How are you feeling?" "Free," I said. Then guilt hit me. "Is that horrible?" "It's about time," she replied. Marcus made breakfast while Claire opened her laptop to help me apartment hunt. I'd been secretly saving for years in an account Mom didn't know about, enough for a deposit and a few months of rent. "This one's cute," Claire said, pointing to a studio close to my office downtown. My phone rang again. This time it was Mrs. Chang, our neighbor. I almost didn't answer, but Claire gave me a small nod. "Your mother's been banging on my door all morning," Mrs. Chang said, voice tight with concern. "Says you've stolen her medication and locked her out of your room. I didn't let her in, but she's making quite the scene." I thanked Mrs. Chang and hung up. My mother didn't take any regular medication. This was just another tactic, another manipulation. "We should get your things," Marcus said, "before she does something to them." We drove to the house while she was out at her weekly hair appointment. I knew her routine by heart. Years of planning my life around it had etched her schedule into my brain. We had exactly 2 hours. My bedroom looked like a cell. No posters, no mementos. Just a bed, a dresser, and a desk cluttered with the contracts she'd made me sign. I grabbed a trash bag and started sweeping them in. "Look at this one," Claire said, holding up a crumpled sheet. "I promised not to leave my mother for more than 3 hours at a time." She tore it in 2. "These aren't legal, you know. These are just insane." We packed my clothes, my laptop, a few hidden books. Everything I owned fit into 3 boxes. 23 years, reduced to 3 boxes. As we loaded the car, I saw her coming down the street. She must have left her appointment early. My hands trembled. "Get in the car," Marcus said calmly. "I'll handle it." But I didn't move. I needed to face her. She ran toward us, hair still wrapped in foil, only half done. "What are you doing? You can't leave?" You promised." "I'm leaving, Mom." Well, nothing says a healthy mother-daughter relationship like binding contracts about not leaving for more than 3 hours, Claire muttered. "I'm surprised she didn't strap you with an ankle monitor." "I'm getting my own place," I said. "I'll die without you. You know I will." "No, you won't." My voice was steady, unwavering. "You've been pretending to die my entire life. I'm done falling for it." She clutched her chest and stumbled, as if collapsing. A few neighbors had come outside by then. Her performances had always been private before, but now this was a full public spectacle. "My heart! I'm having a heart attack!" Mrs. Chang called from her porch. "Should I call an ambulance, Lorraine?" My mother straightened instantly. No ambulance." "Of course not, because then someone would discover again that she was lying." We drove away while she screamed in the street about betrayal and abandonment. I didn't look back. For the next week, Claire's couch became my refuge while I hunted for apartments. My phone never stopped buzzing. When I blocked her number, she called from others' neighbors, her hairdresser, unlisted numbers I didn't recognize. The messages grew more intense. First came guilt. "I'm your mother. I changed your diapers. I stayed up all night when you were sick." Then threats. "I'm changing my will. You're getting nothing." Then bargaining. "Come home and we'll forget this happened. I'll give you more freedom." I didn't reply to any of it. On the 4th day, she showed up at my job. I was filing reports when I heard raised voices at the front desk. "I need to see my daughter. It's a family emergency." My boss, Mr. Aldridge, came to my desk. "There's a woman at reception who says she's your mother. Says it's life or death. It always was with her." I stood up, straightened my skirt, and walked calmly to the lobby. She looked awful, hair greasy, clothes wrinkled, face drawn. She had clearly expected me to fold by now. "We need to talk," she hissed. "We're talking," I said, keeping my voice even. "Here's fine." "Privately," she snapped. "This is a workplace," I said firmly. "If you have something to say it here." She glanced around at the curious staff gathering nearby. "You're killing me! Is that what you want? My blood pressure's through the roof. I can't sleep, I can't eat." "That sounds like something you should speak to a doctor about." Her face flushed a deep red. "I am your mother. And I'm an adult who has chosen to live independently. Please leave before I have to call security." That's when she started crying, big, loud sobs meant for an audience. But my co-workers had already seen the act unfold at the front desk. No one was moved. Security escorted her out. Later, Mr. Aldridge called me into his office. "I'm so sorry," I began, embarrassed. But he raised a hand gently. "I had a mother like that," he said quietly. "Took me 40 years to break free. Good for you for doing it now." Then he offered me the regional manager position again. It was still open, and this time I accepted on the spot. That evening, Claire and Marcus took me out to celebrate. We found a little Italian place downtown. I kept glancing toward the door, half expecting her to storm in. Reflex. Habit. "She called me today," Claire said, swirling her spoon through her tiramisu. "Told me to talk sense into you." "What did you say?" "That you were finally being the sensible one." She smiled. She hung up on me. My phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. I nearly ignored it, but something in me said to answer. "Hello, this is Dr. Langston from St. Jude's Hospital. I'm calling about Lorraine Bennett. She's listed you as her emergency contact." My heart stopped. This was it. She'd finally done something real. "She's been admitted for observation," the doctor continued. "She came in complaining of chest pains, but all tests came back normal. However, she's refusing to leave. Says she'll harm herself if we discharge her." I closed my eyes. Is she actually in danger? Medically? No, but we're obligated to take all such threats seriously. Can you come down? Every part of me screamed to hang up, but I went. Claire and Marcus came with me. We found her in a hospital bed, connected to monitors she didn't need. Her face lit up when she saw me. "Oh, thank God. I knew you'd come. I knew you still cared." I looked her in the eye. "I came to tell the doctors the truth." Her smile faltered. She's been doing this for 15 years. False emergencies, fake suicide attempts. It's manipulation. Her face went cold. How dare you? The doctor pulled me aside. Is this true? I showed him my phone, screenshots of her messages threatening self-harm, voicemails claiming she was dying, photos Claire had taken over the years, scenes clearly staged. She needs psychiatric help, not medical, and I can't be the one to provide it anymore. They kept her for psychiatric evaluation. I signed the forms, removing myself as her emergency contact. I listed a distant cousin in Ohio instead. As we walked out, she shouted after me one last time, "You'll regret this. When I'm gone, you'll live with the guilt." But I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The apartment I found was small, but perfect, top floor of a pre-war building with big windows and warm wooden floors. That first night, I sat on the floor with takeout and cried not from sadness, but relief. Claire helped me settle in. We hung curtains, brought in plants, picked out throw pillows. Every choice was mine. No one threatened to die if I picked the wrong color. Work flourished. Without the looming panic of needing to rush home, I could focus, take initiative, even stay late. My performance soared. Everything changed. 3 weeks into that piece, she found my address. I still don't know how. Maybe she followed Claire, maybe she paid someone. But one evening, I came home to find her sitting on my doorstep. "We need to talk," she said. "No, we don't." I stepped around her to unlock my door. She grabbed my ankle, literally grabbed it like a child, begging not to be left behind. "Please, just 5 minutes." I shook her off. "You need to leave, or I'm calling the police. I'm your mother. That doesn't give you the right to stalk me." She stood, brushed herself off. "Fine, but don't come crying to me when your life falls apart. You think you're so independent? You can't even boil water without me." I almost laughed. I'd been cooking for both of us since I was 12. She left, but not before slipping something under my door, a letter. 20 pages, front and back. A detailed list of every sacrifice she'd ever made, every diaper changed, every meal cooked, and at the bottom, a bill. An actual itemized invoice for raising me. Total, $487,392. I showed it to Claire. We laughed until we cried. "She charged you for birthday presents," Claire pointed out, "with interest." The letters kept coming, some by mail, some slipped under my door. I stopped reading them and started a file just in case I ever needed a restraining order. Then, suddenly, they stopped. A whole week passed without a single call, text, or envelope. I should have been relieved, but instead I felt a knot form in my gut. This wasn't like her. Claire called me on Tuesday. "Have you heard from Mom?" "No, not in a week." "Same here. I have a bad feeling. I think she's planning something big." She was right. That weekend was Claire's wedding shower. A small lunch, just close friends and family, held at a restaurant downtown. We'd deliberately left our mother off the guest list, but I still kept glancing at the door, expecting her to crash the event. Halfway through lunch, Marcus's mother pulled me aside. "There's a woman outside," she said gently. "She claims to be Claire's mother, says there's been a mistake with the invitations." My stomach dropped. Of course she'd found out. I went outside. She was standing there in a full mother-of-the-bride outfit, new dress, full makeup, hair done perfectly. She held a wrapped gift in both hands. "You didn't think you could exclude me from my own daughter's wedding events. You weren't invited for a reason. I'm her mother. I have rights. No. What you have is a history of making everything about you. Claire doesn't want you here." Her face crumpled. For a brief second, I saw something that looked like real pain. Then it vanished, replaced by steel. "I'll ruin it," she said quietly. "If I can't be there, I'll ruin the whole thing. I'll show up at the church. I'll object during the ceremony. I'll cause a scene so big that's all anyone will remember. Then we'll have you removed." "Try it," she sneered. "I'll scream elder abuse. I'll tell everyone how my daughters abandoned me, how you left me to die." I looked at her, really looked at her. She seemed smaller now, older. All those years of fake emergencies, tantrums, and threats had hollowed her out. "Do what you need to do," I said quietly, "but I'm done negotiating with you." I went back inside and told Claire what had happened. She shrugged. "Let her try. Marcus's brothers are bouncers. They've already volunteered for mom duty at the wedding." The rest of the shower went smoothly. We ate cake, Claire opened gifts, everyone smiled. Our mother never came in, but she didn't give up either. The next morning, there was pounding at Claire's apartment door. Marcus checked the peephole and shook his head. Mom stood in the hallway, holding what looked like medical documents. We stayed quiet until she finally left, but not before slipping an envelope under the door. Inside were lab results showing critically high blood pressure and a doctor's note recommending immediate lifestyle changes. The papers looked legitimate, but I knew better. I'd learned to question everything from her. Claire called the clinic listed on the letterhead. They had no patient named Lorraine Bennett. Work became my escape, my sanctuary. But not for long. 3 days after the shower, the receptionist handed me a small package. No return address, but I knew the handwriting instantly. Inside were photos, me leaving Claire's apartment, walking into work, standing in line at the grocery store. On the back of each one, she'd scrawled notes. A mother always watches her children. You can't hide from family. I know where you are, every moment. My hands shook as I brought them to Mr. Aldridge. He called building security immediately. They pulled the footage. There she was in the parking garage, sitting in her car with a camera for hours. She was banned from the premises, but her message was clear. I can still get to you. The regional manager role required a 2-week training in another city. I'd be staying at a company-provided hotel. I hesitated, unsure about leaving, but Claire insisted. You need this, she said. We've got it covered if anything happens. 3 days into training, my hotel phone rang. A woman claiming to be my mother had collapsed in the lobby. She was refusing medical attention, demanding to see her daughter. I explained everything to hotel security. They found her unharmed, just sitting upright in the lobby, calmly insisting she needed my room number. When they refused, she laid down on the floor and wouldn't move until police were called. The next day, my training coordinator pulled me aside. Corporate had received multiple calls from a woman accusing me of stealing money, being mentally unstable, and threatening her life. Thankfully, Mr. Aldridge had warned them in advance. The company installed extra security at the hotel and the training facility. I threw myself into the work. Regional budgeting, logistics, managing cross-functional teams. It was intense. But for the first time in years, I went hours without thinking about her. On day 10, I returned to my hotel room to find maintenance replacing the lock. Someone had attempted to break in while I was at training. Nothing was stolen, but my belongings had been moved. Clothes shifted, toiletries rearranged, and on my pillow a note, a mother's love finds a way. Hotel security reviewed the cameras. A woman matching her description had convinced a new desk clerk that she was my mother, locked out of my room. She'd shown a photo of us from years ago and claimed I was expecting her. Trying to help, the clerk gave her a key. I spent my final night in that hotel room with the dresser pushed against the door, heart racing at every sound in the hallway. When I returned home, I was exhausted, but proud. I had finished the training. I had earned the promotion. I hadn't let her win. Claire picked me up from the airport. As we drove, she filled me in on what I'd missed. Mom had shown up at Marcus's parents' house, introducing herself as the mother of the bride. She cried about being excluded from the wedding planning, painting herself as a poor victim of ungrateful, heartless daughters. Marcus's mom, a sweet, trusting woman who didn't know the full extent of the history, nearly invited her to help with decorations before Marcus stepped in and shut it down. She hadn't stopped there. She called every vendor Claire had booked. The caterer, the florist, the DJ each received a phone call from a concerned mother trying to assist with her daughter's big day. Some she tried to convince the wedding was canceled, urging them to refund deposits or halt services. Others she attempted to manipulate by modifying orders adding items Claire had never asked for. Luckily, Claire had already password-protected all her vendor accounts after the shower incident. Her preparations paid off. Meanwhile, my new apartment was ready. I'd signed the lease before leaving for training, and Claire had overseen the move while I was away. Walking through the front door felt surreal. My own place, my own rules. The windows faced east, flooding the rooms with morning sunlight. I'd never had natural light like that before. Mom always kept our curtains shut tight. That first night alone, I checked every lock 3 times. I tested the building's security system. The superintendent had already been briefed after Mom tried convincing him she needed access to her daughter's apartment for a medical emergency. When he asked for proof, she stormed off in a fury. Work in my new position was challenging but energizing. I managed accounts across 3 states, flying out to meet local teams, troubleshoot issues, and build connections. The travel scared me at first. What if she caused chaos while I was gone? But each smooth trip built confidence. I could handle this. Mom adapted. When she couldn't reach me directly, she targeted people around me. She called my company's HR department, accusing me of stealing from her to fund a lavish lifestyle. When HR found no evidence, she called corporate, then individual board members. Names she found online. Each time, the story changed: elder abuse, fraud, abandonment. My company stood by me, but I felt the strain. I saw the sideways glances, the second-guessing. My colleagues didn't know what to believe. I responded the only way I knew how, by working twice as hard, staying later, delivering results. As Claire's wedding day approached, planning intensified: dress fittings, cake tastings, venue tours. I attended every event I could, always watching the exits, always scanning for Mom. She showed up at the bridal boutique claiming she'd been accidentally left off the appointment list. The shop owner, having been warned, calmly asked her to leave. She refused. Instead, she stood outside the storefront for 2 hours, staring through the window as Claire tried on gowns. Her stunts grew more twisted. Packages began arriving at my apartment, photo albums with my face cut out of every picture, childhood trinkets covered in notes about how much she'd sacrificed to provide them. One day, a meal I hadn't ordered was delivered tagged, "From your loving mother who knows you're not eating properly." I donated the food to my elderly neighbor. The rest went into a growing documentation file. Claire pushed for a restraining order. I hesitated. Court meant seeing her again, meant giving her an audience. But then came Phoenix. I was in the middle of presenting quarterly projections at a regional meeting when my phone erupted with messages. Mom had checked herself into a psychiatric hospital and listed me as her emergency contact. She told them I'd pushed her toward suicide, that she was in crisis and needed intervention because of me. I stepped out of the meeting, trying to steady my breathing. The doctor on the phone was calm, professional. He listened as I outlined years of patterns, manipulations, crises crafted to maintain control. He admitted they were already skeptical. She hadn't described any actual symptoms, just insisted they contact me. They released her that night. But the damage was done. I'd missed half the meeting. My team was confused. My credibility took a hit. I spent the evening alone in my hotel room, staring at the ceiling, completely unraveled. She was never going to stop, no matter how many miles I put between us, how much I grew, how solid my boundaries became. She'd find a way to insert herself back into my life. Claire talked me through the breakdown over a video call. "The wedding's in 6 weeks," she said. "We'll handle whatever she tries, together." Marcus's brothers had devised a full security plan for the big day. I wasn't alone. When I returned home, emotionally drained but determined, I found an envelope taped to my apartment door. It was an eviction notice. My landlord had received multiple complaints: loud noises, strange smells, suspicious visitors coming to my apartment, all reported by anonymous callers, all during times I could prove I was out of town. The landlord believed me, but the management company didn't want drama. I was given 30 days to vacate. Finding a new place felt impossible. Every apartment I applied to mysteriously received calls about my situation. Landlords I'd never listed as references were contacted and warned about my manipulative mother. One of them told me flat out, "I can't risk that kind of disruption in my building." Claire and Marcus offered their couch again, but I refused. I wouldn't let Mom strip away the independence I'd fought so hard for. I finally secured an apartment through a coworker's friend, someone who understood toxic family dynamics firsthand. The building had tighter security, key fob entry, cameras on every floor, a doorman who took his job seriously. Moving day came, no sign of her. That worried me more than if she had shown up. Claire helped me pack, both of us pausing now and then to check the windows, listen for footsteps in the hallway. Nothing, just silence. And that silence felt dangerous. The new place was smaller but safer. 4th floor, no fire escape, one way in, one way out. I installed extra locks, a doorbell camera, and a small security cam just inside the entry. Maybe it was overkill, but I'd learned to listen to my gut. As I adjusted to the new apartment, my job became even more demanding. More travel, more responsibility. I checked in with Claire daily, but stopped anticipating a crisis with every call. Then, after 3 weeks of silence, the longest she'd ever gone, Claire rang during a business dinner in Denver. Mom had been hospitalized. This time, it was real. She'd collapsed in the grocery store. Tests revealed she'd been neglecting her diabetes for months. Her blood sugar was dangerously high. She was refusing treatment unless her daughters came to visit. I stared at my half-eaten steak. Of course she had diabetes. Of course she'd ignored it. She'd finally found a legitimate condition and instantly turned it into leverage. Claire was torn. "It might be real," she said, "or it might be another ploy." We agreed she'd visit the hospital and assess the situation. I'd fly home only if it was truly serious. An hour later, she called again. "She's sick," Claire said, "but stable. They've got her on insulin, monitoring her levels. She'll be fine if she follows treatment." She paused. When I walked in, she smiled like she'd won something. Mom had discovered the ultimate weapon, her own body. She didn't need pills or threats anymore, just skipped insulin or poor dietary choices. It was the perfect manipulation tool, a slow, quiet threat that didn't need dramatics. I finished my trip, but the weight of that truth lingered over everything. She'd turned herself into a hostage. How do you fight that? Back home, Claire and I met to plan. The wedding was 2 weeks away. Mom definitely knew the date and location, no matter how careful we'd been. She'd likely try to use her condition to force her way in. We couldn't let her destroy Claire's day, but we also couldn't ignore real medical issues. Marcus suggested hiring a nurse to be on standby at the venue. If Mom showed up with a supposed health crisis, a medical professional could assess it immediately. It felt drastic. But what about this situation wasn't? A week before the wedding, the gifts started showing up at Claire's apartment. Not wedding gifts, guilt gifts. Childhood toys, baby clothes, handmade quilts from her infancy. Each one came with a note reminiscing about the love sewn into every stitch, the long nights, the sacrifice, the motherhood. Claire donated it all to charity, but I saw the way her expression changed. She tried to be strong. Still, memories can ache even when you know they're being used against you. Mom had turned her diagnosis into a guilt campaign. That's a whole new level of emotional warfare. Most parents just settle for passive-aggressive sighs. She used insulin and nostalgia. Even knowing the game, those objects still carried power. Then my hotel reservation for the wedding weekend was mysteriously canceled. When I called, they told me I had canceled it the day before. I hadn't. I rebooked at a different hotel under a fake name. 3 days before the wedding, she escalated again. She called Claire's venue pretending to be me, trying to cancel the entire event. Fortunately, Claire had warned the staff this might happen. They asked for the password she'd set up. Mom didn't have it. Then she moved on to the guest list, calling everyone whose numbers she could find, telling them the wedding was canceled due to a family emergency. Claire and Marcus spent an entire day making calls, reassuring confused and frustrated guests that everything was still on. I saw the stress in Claire's face. The night before the wedding, I stayed over at Claire's place. We did face masks, painted our nails, tried our best to pretend it was just a normal evening, but neither of us slept. Every car door outside made us flinch. Every footstep in the hallway sent our hearts racing. The morning dawned clear and bright. Marcus's brothers, Ben and Tyler, arrived early to secure the venue. Both worked nightclub security on weekends and took their assignment seriously, sweeping the building, checking entrances, briefing staff. Claire looked breathtaking in her dress. As I helped her adjust her veil, she reached for my hand. We didn't need words. We'd made it this far. We were going to make it through today. Guests began arriving without issue. The space filled with friends, relatives, and members of Marcus's family, most of whom had confirmed directly with Claire that the wedding was real. Still, no sign of Mom. As the music started and I walked down the aisle as maid of honor, I scanned every face in the crowd. All familiar, all invited, all safe. Maybe she really had given up. Maybe Ben and Tyler's presence had worked. Maybe for once we'd actually won. The ceremony was beautiful. Claire and Marcus exchanged handwritten vows, full of promises about partnership and standing strong through life's storms. As I listened, I couldn't help thinking about how far I'd come, from the girl who used to sit outside the locked bathroom door, pleading for her mother to be okay, to this. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, the room held a breathless pause. Nothing. Silence. Then he pronounced them husband and wife. Applause erupted. We made it through the photos, the receiving line, cocktail hour. Ben and Tyler reported no disturbances. I actually began to relax, to enjoy the celebration. Then, during dinner, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Mom in a hospital bed, hooked to monitors. The message read, "Your mother is dying alone while you party. The nurses say she's been calling for you. This is what you wanted, isn't it?" My hand trembled. Claire saw my face and leaned over to read the screen. Without a word, she took my phone and showed it to Marcus. He nodded and whispered something to his brothers. Ben left the room to make calls. 20 minutes later, he came back with news. Mom had indeed checked into the hospital that evening, complaining of chest pain. But all her tests were normal. She wasn't dying. She was using a friend's phone to contact me, probably the same woman sitting beside her bed, taking the picture. Claire squeezed my hand. "We'll deal with it tomorrow," she said. "Tonight is about Joy, not her." The rest of the reception blurred by speeches, dancing, the cake cutting. I gave my maid of honor toast, sharing stories about Claire's resilience, her clarity, her bravery in choosing her own life. I didn't mention Mom, but everyone who knew us understood. As the night wound down, I helped Claire bustle her dress for more dancing. She pulled me aside and pressed something small into my hand. A key. "What's this?" "Marcus and I talked. We want you to stay at our place while we're on our honeymoon. 2 weeks. She doesn't know our unit, just the building. You'll be safer there." I hugged her tight, careful not to smudge her makeup. Even on her wedding day, she was protecting me. The next morning, I moved into Claire and Marcus's apartment. They left for Hawaii. I had the space to myself. It felt strange being in someone else's home, but also peaceful, comforting. Mom couldn't manipulate what she couldn't find. Those 2 weeks passed quietly. I kept my routine, worked, stopped by my apartment occasionally to collect mail. Mom remained in the hospital for 3 days before checking herself out. She called my job twice, but my office had stopped putting her through. When Claire and Marcus returned, sun-kissed and smiling, we had a family meeting. This couldn't go on. Her diabetes had become her newest weapon, but it was also a real medical condition that needed consistent professional care. We couldn't provide that. Our presence only fueled her manipulations. We started researching assisted living facilities, ones equipped for patients with both physical and psychological needs. It felt cold, like betrayal. But what other option did we have? She didn't need more attention. She needed help. 4 days after Claire got back, Mom was hospitalized again. This time, we were ready. While she was admitted, we met with the hospital social worker. We laid out everything, the years of manipulation, the false emergencies, the way she'd endangered herself and us. The social worker listened closely, nodded. She'd seen cases like this before. She understood. This time, they kept Mom for a full psychological evaluation. Without us rushing to her bedside like before, her patterns became more apparent to the staff. She refused medication until someone contacted her daughters, claimed suicidal thoughts, only to retract them the moment we were reached. To the professionals, those not entangled in her manipulations, the cycle was obvious. The evaluation recommended intensive outpatient therapy and placement in a structured living environment. Mom refused both. She checked herself out against medical advice, but now there was documentation. A paper trail showing her consistent refusal to accept help. The very next day, she showed up at my office. She looked worn down, hair unkempt, noticeably thinner, clothes hanging off her frame. Security stopped her at the door, but I could see her through the glass. For a moment, I felt something shift in my chest. Then I remembered every time she'd turned her own suffering into a weapon. I had security inform her of the assisted living options we had researched. If she wanted our help, it would be on our terms. Professional support, boundaries, respect. She left without a word. That night, another hospital called. She'd collapsed again, this time at a restaurant. Her blood sugar had spiked dangerously high. They needed an emergency contact. I gave them the social worker's number. The next day, Claire and I visited together, this time with the social worker present. Mom looked small beneath the hospital blankets, but the moment she saw us, her eyes sharpened with fury. We laid out the options: structured living with therapy and regular visits, or continuing this self-destructive spiral alone. We weren't going to drop everything for every crisis. We wouldn't enable her anymore, but we would support her getting real help. She exploded. Accused us of abuse, abandonment, cruelty. Claimed we were trying to throw her away. The social worker recorded everything. When Mom threatened to harm herself if we left, the social worker didn't flinch. She initiated a psychiatric hold. Mom backtracked immediately, denied everything, pleaded. But it was too late. The professionals finally saw what we'd been living through for years. She was placed on a 72-hour hold. During that time, Claire and I met with lawyers, therapists, social workers. We learned about boundaries, about enabling, about how good intentions can become harmful if they keep someone sick. We weren't abandoning her. We were refusing to be part of her self-destruction. When she was released, she had a choice: accept the assisted living placement with required therapy, or manage her health on her own, without using us as leverage. She chose independence, of course. Declared she didn't need us, didn't need anyone. The social worker handed her a folder: diabetes education programs, therapy referrals, local support groups. She tossed the pamphlets into the trash can as she walked out. We didn't hear from her for a month. It was the longest silence yet. I checked in with the hospitals from time to time. No sign of her. Claire drove past the house once and saw her car parked outside. She was alive, managing, somehow. I threw myself into work, into the life I was finally allowed to build. The regional role came with opportunities, conferences, leadership training, career growth. I started dating slowly and cautiously. I joined a support group for adults with manipulative parents. I realized I wasn't alone. Claire and Marcus settled into married life. Sunday dinners at their apartment became a tradition: homemade meals, movie nights, board games. Simple things we never had growing up. The silence stretched into 6 weeks. By then, I'd grown used to checking my phone constantly, waiting for the next storm. But now the quiet felt unnatural, heavy. Claire and I texted daily, both feeling something building beneath the surface. Then Mrs. Chang called me at work. Her voice was low, uneasy. "Your mother's been bringing people to the house. Contractors, movers, even real estate agents. It looks like she's getting ready to leave." I left work early and drove by. A "for sale" sign was staked in the front yard. Our childhood home, the place that had once been our cage, was on the market. Through the front window, I saw moving boxes stacked along the walls. Claire met me at a coffee shop nearby. We sat in silence, letting it sink in. Mom selling the house meant something. Either she was planning something drastic, or she'd finally accepted our boundaries. Neither possibility felt safe. We looked up the listing online. The photos made the house look bright, warm, inviting. Fresh paint, staged furniture. You'd never guess the psychological warfare that had unfolded inside those walls. The asking price on the house was below market. She clearly wanted a quick sale. 3 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. It wasn't another fake emergency this time. It was a man's voice, calm, professional. He introduced himself as the property manager for a small apartment complex. Mom had listed me as a reference on her rental application. I told him the truth. "She's my mother, yes, but we're estranged. I can't recommend her as a tenant. Her behavior has caused serious disruption." He thanked me for the honesty and ended the call. An hour later, he rang again. The other 3 references she'd provided were disconnected numbers, dead ends. He had decided not to rent to her. Then came her next attempt, this time through Claire's work. She applied for a job at the dental office where Claire worked as a hygienist, used her maiden name Margaret Walker, thinking no one would make the connection right away. At a staff meeting, her name came up casually. The office manager asked if anyone knew a Margaret Walker. The listed addresses rang a bell for Claire. After the meeting, she pulled her boss aside and explained everything. The application was immediately discarded, but the message was clear. She wasn't giving up. She was looking for cracks, any crack to wedge herself back into our lives. The house sold within 2 weeks. I found out through property records, not from her. The buyers were a young couple with twins. I hoped they would fill those rooms with better memories than we ever had. Her new address turned up by accident. A piece of misdirected mail landed at my building with a forwarding label. She'd moved to a rundown complex across town. The kind of place with weekly leases and no background checks. A last resort sort of place. The kind of place people go when they're running out of options. Meanwhile, my job had me constantly on the move. I was thriving, building something real. Each trip felt like a small dose of freedom. My team respected me. My work mattered. I was good at it, better than I'd ever imagined. At a conference in Seattle, I met someone. Ben worked for one of our partner companies. We struck up a conversation during a coffee break and just kept talking. He was kind, quick-witted, and didn't press when I said my family situation was complicated. We exchanged numbers, started texting. It felt strange, letting someone new into my orbit, but also kind of nice. Then Claire called while I was at the airport heading home. "Mom's been spotted at the grocery store near us," she said. She wasn't shopping, just sitting in her car in the parking lot, watching. Store security approached her. She drove away, but the next day she was back. And the next. Marcus installed new security cameras around their building. The footage showed her circling the block, sometimes parking across the street for hours. She never got out of the car, never tried to talk. She just watched. The stalking escalated. She started showing up at places we'd casually mentioned on social media, restaurants Claire checked into, the gym where I posted a photo from a charity event. Always watching, never speaking, just a silent presence reminding us she was still there. It was psychological warfare. We stopped posting, locked our accounts down, but the damage was done. She already knew our routines, our schedules, where we worked, where we lived, where we spent our time. That knowledge sat on our shoulders like a weight we couldn't shake. Then the packages started arriving, not at our homes, because she knew we'd reject those. Instead, she sent them to our workplaces, to our friends, even to Marcus's parents. Photo albums from years ago. Carefully curated images of happy times before the manipulation, before the lies. Letters framing herself as a loving, abandoned mother betrayed by selfish daughters. Some people believed her. Most didn't, but even the smallest seeds of doubt were enough. Another method of control. Another reminder that she could still reach us. My breaking point came on Claire's birthday. We picked a restaurant we'd never been to before, made the reservation under Marcus's name. We said nothing publicly. No posts, no stories. And still, she found us. I saw her through the window across the street, just standing there, watching. When I turned back to look again, she was gone. That night, I'd had enough. I called the hospital social worker we'd spoken with before, told her everything, the escalation, the surveillance, the intimidation. She listened carefully, took notes, promised to check on what options were available, but what she found wasn't encouraging. Without direct threats or physical violence, legal options were limited. Mom knew exactly how far she could go. She never got close enough for a restraining order, never made threats you could record. She was playing the long game, eroding us, not with force, but with presence. Claire and Marcus made the difficult decision to move. They found a house in a gated community 40 minutes away, somewhere Mom couldn't lurk outside. On some level, it felt like letting her win. But Claire's peace mattered more than pride. I helped them pack, both of us nervously glancing out the windows. On moving day, we took separate cars and different routes, making sure no one followed. It felt like something out of a thriller, but this was just our life. The new house was lovely. 2 stories, a big backyard, room for the family they were planning. As we unpacked, Claire looked lighter. The distance gave her space to breathe. My own lease was up in 3 months. I started researching apartments across the city, places Mom wouldn't think to look, but even the act of searching left me drained. Constant vigilance had become a way of life. Then work offered an unexpected way out. The company was opening a new regional office 2 states away. They needed someone experienced to set it up and manage it for the first year. It would mean starting over, leaving everything I'd built, but also leaving her reach. I said yes on the spot. Telling Claire was the hardest part. We'd only just begun to reclaim our relationship as adults, and now I was disappearing again. But she understood. Sometimes distance is the only path to peace. We promised weekly video calls, visits every few months. It wasn't abandonment, it was survival. I didn't tell anyone else I was leaving. I packed slowly, carefully. Hired movers for a weekday when I knew Mom had regular appointments. I didn't even tell my building manager until the day I turned in my keys. The drive took 12 hours. I stopped only for gas, kept checking my rearview mirror, half expecting to see her car. But no one followed. As I crossed the state line, something in my chest finally loosened. I could breathe. The new apartment was part of corporate housing, temporary, but secure. I threw myself into the work, setting up the office, hiring the team, designing processes from scratch. It was exhausting, demanding, but it consumed me in the best way. Days passed where I didn't think about her at all. Claire called with updates. Mom had discovered they'd moved when she showed up at their old apartment. She made a scene, demanded the new tenants tell her where her daughter had gone. The police were called. She left before they arrived. My absence took longer for her to notice. Eventually, she showed up at my old office, demanding to speak with me. Mr. Aldridge personally informed her I no longer worked there. Then she tried my old apartment, then started calling every contact she could dig up. But no one knew where I'd gone, because I hadn't told anyone. The first few months in my new city felt like witness protection. I used a different name at coffee shops, paid in cash, stayed off social media entirely. Eventually, I began to relax. She didn't know where I was. She couldn't find me. Work thrived. The office exceeded its first-year projections within 6 months. I'd built a great team, people who respected boundaries, never asked about my family. Ben and I kept texting, then calling, then video chatting. He understood why I couldn't tell him where I was, not yet. But he stayed anyway. Then came Claire's big news. She called during one of our weekly video chats, glowing. She was pregnant. Derek stood behind her, smiling from ear to ear. They'd waited to tell me, in person, virtually at least. I cried, overwhelmed with joy. Already planning how I'd sneak in to meet my niece or nephew. Mom found out through extended family. Then came the packages. Baby clothes, handmade quilts, old toys she'd supposedly saved, letters filled with guilt and legal threats, mentions of grandparents' rights, accusations that Claire was robbing her grandchild of love. Claire donated everything. She kept the letters, just in case. The baby came early, but healthy. A perfect little girl named Lily. I flew in under the radar, stayed in a hotel under a fake name. No public posts, no digital trail. The moment I held Lily in my arms, I knew even more clearly why Claire and I had made the choices we did. This child deserved peace, not manipulation. I extended my stay, helping Claire adjust to motherhood. We created a routine. I'd visit monthly, always in secret, always carefully. Mom's letters still came, but they no longer had power. Claire didn't even flinch anymore. Lily came first, 6 months into my new life, just as I began to believe maybe Mom had finally let go. The letters found me. Not at my apartment, not at my office, somewhere else. She didn't have my new addresses. Instead, the letters came through corporate forwarded by our company's main headquarters. She'd figured out where I worked, though still didn't know where I lived. But the letters had changed. They weren't filled with guilt or threats anymore. They rambled. She wrote about her declining health, about running out of money, about being alone. Some part of me still felt the old pang of guilt trying to surface. Then I remembered the staged emergencies, the hospital scenes, the lies. I filed the letters away without reading them. Claire faced her own new battles. After Lily caught her first cold, Mom began calling local hospitals, pretending to be a concerned grandmother. She managed to get access to Lily's full name and date of birth enough to try to get updates. Claire had to password protect all of Lily's medical records, another layer of defense. Then the stalking returned. This time, it focused on Lily. Mom began sitting outside her daycare, watching through the fence, never approaching, never saying a word, never quite breaking the law, just watching. The daycare boosted its security in response, but the psychological damage lingered. Marcus, always the strategist, came up with an elegant solution. His brother Ben owned several rental properties, including a house in a different school district. They did a quiet, off-the-record property swap. On paper, Claire and Marcus still lived at their registered address. In reality, they'd moved. If Mom wanted to watch the front door of an empty house, she could do so all she wanted. My year at the new regional office was ending. Corporate offered me a permanent position with growth potential. At the same time, Ben was offered a transfer to my city. After a year of nurturing a long-distance relationship, we were ready to build something real. I accepted the contract. He accepted the transfer. For the first time in my life, I was creating something entirely separate from the chaos of the past. Mom's letters still arrived occasionally, but they felt like echoes from another world. They no longer rattled me. Claire's second pregnancy brought new stress. Somehow, Mom got herself listed as an emergency contact at the hospital where Claire was due to deliver. She showed up during labor, arguing with nurses, demanding access, claiming grandmother's rights. Security had to remove her. The drama could have derailed everything, but baby James arrived safely. I flew in again, this time bringing Ben. Introducing him to Claire and Marcus felt like merging two lives, but in the best possible way. Safe, whole, supported. Ben understood everything, even the parts I never said aloud. Mom's health really did decline this time. Not for attention, not as a tactic. Years of ignoring her diabetes finally caught up with her. The hospitalizations became real, repeated, serious. Each time, despite our previous removals, she listed us again as her emergency contacts. The hospitals called anyway, just following protocol. We didn't go. The social worker from before checked in on her condition and kept us informed. She needed care, real, long-term, structured care. The same kind we'd offered long ago. She still refused it. Still said she just needed her girls. But we had stepped off the carousel. My job expanded again, now covering multiple regions. The travel grew, but it didn't wear me down. Each new flight, each new city felt like another mile of freedom. Ben traveled with me sometimes, balancing his own career while cheering on mine. We moved in together, found a place that felt like ours. We built a life filled with ordinary routines, groceries, coffee, Sunday mornings with no drama. Claire and Marcus bought a larger home. Still secret, still secure. As their family grew, so did their caution. Every school registration, every extracurricular activity had layers of protection. Passwords, no photo policies, call verification codes. Exhausting, but necessary. Mom's letters became less frequent. The last one I received was barely coherent, rambling about plans that didn't make sense, people who weren't real. The handwriting slanted and messy. Claire received one too. We compared them. Same tone, same disintegration. Whatever game she had been playing, whatever war she thought she was winning, was ending. Then came the call. It wasn't from a hospital. It was from her neighbor. Mom had been found unconscious in her apartment. Diabetic coma. She was alive, but in critical condition. The neighbor called after finding our numbers written in her old address book. Claire and I met at the hospital, but not in her room. We weren't ready for that. We met with the doctors instead. They laid out the truth plainly. Her condition had deteriorated. Years of skipped medication and ignored warning signs had left damage. Recovery was still possible, but only with dedicated care, the kind she'd always refused. This time, we handled it differently. We arranged everything from a distance. We found a facility equipped to treat both her medical needs and psychological history. We used what was left from the sale of her house to fund it. We established a trust. We set boundaries. We did everything a daughter is supposed to do, except visit. She recovered slowly. The facility sent regular updates, which we read but didn't reply to. She was finally getting the care she needed. Therapy, medication management, routine stability. Everything we had tried to arrange for her in the past was now happening because there was no other option left. Claire's children grew up without knowing their grandmother. Sometimes we'd show them old photographs, the ones from before everything unraveled. We told them simple, age-appropriate stories about family and how sometimes it could be complicated. They accepted it with the ease of children free from the guilt we carried for so long. My life with Ben blossomed. We got engaged in a quiet ceremony. Claire was there, secretly. Mom wasn't invited, wasn't told. The wedding was small, perfect, full of peace. Claire stood by my side as my maid of honor again this time, without fear of interruption. Work brought steady success. Promotions came regularly. I was respected, trusted, and good at what I did. I built strong teams, delivered results, and it all felt clean-free of the chaos I'd once known. Sometimes co-workers asked about family. I'd mention Claire. That was enough. Mom's facility called from time to time with updates. She was stable, participating in group therapy, making slow, documented progress. Occasionally, they'd suggest that a visit might help her healing. We always declined. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. We had ensured she was safe. She had food, medical attention, emotional support. That was the boundary. That was enough. Years passed. Claire's kids started school. I became a regional director. Ben and I bought a house. Life moved forward, not easily, but as it should have. The hypervigilance that once ruled us faded into the background, never fully gone, but no longer in control. Then came the letter from her facility. She'd had a minor stroke. It had impacted her memory. She was confused but calm. She kept asking for her daughters, not us as we are, but younger versions, children who never walked away, who never said no. The staff thought we should know. Claire and I spoke about it over a video call, our own children playing in the background. The guilt was still there, probably always would be. But so was the clarity of what we'd survived and what we'd managed to build in spite of it. We sent flowers, no card, no signature, just bright blooms to soften her room. It felt like the right balance, acknowledging her humanity without tearing open old wounds. After that, the calls stopped. We continued paying for her care, continued watching from a distance. She was safe. She was stable. She was no longer capable of controlling us. We were free. Our lives had grown into something she couldn't reach. Sometimes I still dreamed of her. Not nightmares, just flickers of who she used to be. Pancakes on Sunday mornings, teaching me to ride a bike in the driveway. That version of her had existed once, before the manipulation, before the fear. Claire remembered too. We'd talk about it during visits, how grief could come from losing someone who was technically still alive. Our therapists helped us through it, so did time. Eventually, the guilt mellowed into something manageable, replaced by acceptance. My story wasn't unique. The support group reminded me of that. So many others had survived similar pasts. We shared strategies, celebrated progress, and gave each other space to feel all the complicated things no one else understood. The last update came in a routine facility report. Mom was doing well in memory care. She no longer asked for us. She had settled into a routine. The medication kept her calm. The therapy helped her manage what fragments remained. She seemed, at last, at peace. I filed the report with the others, a quiet stack of proof that we had done the right thing even when it felt impossibly wrong. She was cared for. We were safe. Everyone had made it out. That night, I made dinner for Ben. Later, I video called Claire to see the kids. Small, normal things, once unimaginable in the world Mom had tried to keep us in. We had broken the cycle. We had built something better. Yes, the guilt would always linger in some corner of us. But so would the truth that we had chosen life over manipulation, health over dysfunction, freedom over control. And in the end, that choice had saved us all, even her.